Welcome, Trina, and I want to thank you for being willing to be here to tell your story about the depression that you suffered. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm ready to get this interview on the way because I think people need to hear your story. So,
Definitely.
yeah, I want to start with asking you a couple questions. Number one, why do you think that the Black community has such a hard time going to seek counseling?
Um, I think the biggest part is that we are such a religious group of people,
Uh-huh.
and that we lean on God to a fault. And what I mean by that is we think that by prayer and fasting, anything can happen and anything is possible, which is true.
Uh-huh.
But I think that we forget about the resources that God has placed here on earth to help us while we're on this journey. So I think
Basically, faith.
yeah, yeah. So I think that
And work.
if we stop being so judgmental
Uh-huh.
amongst each other, that people will feel more comfortable about sharing their stories and being honest and open about who they are and what they're going through.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And don't you think it has a lot to do with our upbringing too, like we spoke about before?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Our moms teach us not to, say nothing. What
About
goes
family
on in this
business.
house? Huh?
Yeah, and you don't talk about family business.
Oh no.
And we sometimes think that, especially it's been my experience as an educator, especially working with mothers of color.
Right.
We feel like if somebody comes, there's been times where I've gone to a parent and said, okay, your child is displaying this and this and this.
Uh-huh.
I think, they may need some to talk to somebody or need some help. They think that that's a reflection on their parenting.
Yeah.
And so if your child has a problem, it very may well have nothing to do with you. I mean, we all have different issues and problems and things that we go through our life. And sometimes it's just us, things that we're dealing with. It has nothing to do with our friends or family or the outside world. And so as parents and community, we need to realize that it's not a reflection on us because someone else is going through something. It's not something that we did.
Right.
Just give them the support that they need.
Exactly. Exactly. Who do you think it's harder for? Females or males in the Black community?
To
Just counseling.
expand on the question, to seek counseling.
Yeah.
I think it's harder for males,
Mhm.
simply because males have always taught to be strong. Real men don't cry.
Yes.
You're supposed to be the head of the family. You're supposed to lead your family. How are you going to lead your family if you're in counseling and you can't run your household? How
Right.
you run anything?
Right.
So I think people see going to counseling and seeking help as an omission of weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. There's such a benefit from it. And it's
Absolutely.
sad. It's
Yes.
so sad that that stigma is on us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if you even think about it, when you have any type of problem, if you could be frustrated about something, you
Mhm.
pick up the phone and call me, or I pick up the phone and call you. It could be something small,
Right.
but if you talk about it, you feel better.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So how much more do you think when you're going through something that seems monumental, that seems huge to you in your life, how much more beneficial do you think if you seek some counseling or some help
Yeah.
to talk about that and kind of unpack some of that stuff that you're going through and seek another perspective?
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. Hey, why don't we just get right into your story because again, I'm sure it's going to touch so many people.
Okay, first I want to start by talking about some of the symptoms
Okay, that'd
of,
be
of,
great.
of depression. I didn't know it while I was going through it, but a lot of things that I experienced was insomnia,
Hmm.
trouble sleeping at night, loss of appetite, a lot of nausea. I mean, and it was almost like a situational nausea. It's like I wasn't nauseated all day, but just things that I would hear or see, or when I felt overwhelmed, I would get nauseated, and I mean, I kept my head in a toilet. Loss of energy.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest thing for me was the red flag for me was when I just didn't enjoy being around the people that I knew that I love and I usually wanted to be around, and
Hmm.
doing the things that I always like to do. Those things were no longer fun for me or no longer interesting for me.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time alone in my room. crying, seeking God, asking why me, why am I going through this? Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? But one particular night, had been up all night, and I hadn't slept in weeks. I want to say months. I hadn't had a good night's sleep, and I was just at my wit's end. I didn't, I needed some relief from. My mind was just racing. I was exhausted, dehydrated, all of the above, And so I had created a suicide plan. I had mapped it all out. I lived on a frontage road off of 94, and I was just going to walk out on the highway and end it all. Just so happened that next morning when I got up to set this plan in motion, I got a phone call from a really good friend of mine. And, we were talking, and she was already a Christian woman, and she didn't really know what the previous night had been for me. She was just calling to check on me because she know that I was going through a lot of things. Right. And I kind of broke down and just told her everything that I was thinking. And she prayed with me, and she got her pastor on the phone on the three-way, and, we talked. He asked me some questions, and I just told him, I'm done. I can't do this no more. I don't want to live like this anymore, So they arranged for me to go to Ramsey. I always want to say Regions because it's Regions now.
Back then.
Back then it was Ramsey Hospital.
Dating us here, but yeah.
Right. They picked me up and took me there, and this friend called my mom because she was at work to let her know what was going on. And I just remember thinking that this is it for me. This is it. I'm never gonna see my baby again. I'm never gonna be out in society again, period. And I didn't even get to, the worst part about it is that I was such in a bad mental state that I didn't really take care of my daughter the first couple of years of her life. We had a bond there. I had that bonding period with her, but I was so sick all the time that between my mom and different friends, she was passed around. So I wasn't able to take care of her. And so all I could think was that I was leaving my baby behind, and this was my life. Once I was there, it was a very scary experience, just looking around the room and seeing all the different people there. I mean, mental illness comes in all shapes and sizes, all races, all ethnicities. It doesn't discriminate. And there are people in there from doctors, lawyers, to homeless people off the street.
Rich, poor, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And so I spent my first night there, and the next morning my cousin came to visit me. And she came in, and she had this notebook. And inside the notebook was some scriptures that she wanted me. She bought me a Bible and some notebook, and inside was the scriptures that she wanted me to go through. And she told me, I need you to meditate on these scriptures. But the crazy thing about it is that when she came into the room, they immediately confiscated the notebook. And I'm just like, what? Y'all stripping? It's a notebook. They took the wire binding out of the notebook. Because they were afraid that I was going to do something with it. And I'm just thinking, all this is just hitting me like, wow, this is your life. This is your life right now. And so after I visited with her, I read the scriptures and meditated on those scriptures all night. And I fell asleep. And I woke up the next morning, and when I woke up, everybody had already started their day. It was almost lunchtime. And that's how good I slept. And I was like, wow, there's something to this. This must really work, so it made me even more hungrier for the word, for the word. And so I, kept reading through those scriptures all day. And I felt like, if I continued to do that, then there was some type of hope. So I asked to be released from there. And this was not the next day. I was there, I think, for about 2 weeks. I was there. I'm just kind of, for the sake of time, kind of ad-libbing. But I went to the doctors and I asked to be released, and they said, no, we don't think that's a good idea for you. You're not ready. We don't think you're strong enough. You're going to go back to the same challenges and things that you were having, And I said, but I feel different now. You know, I think that I might be able to handle it. They didn't understand the spiritual aspect. They didn't,
Right.
and I really didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was just, so sometimes we just kind of mimic what we've heard and what we
Yeah.
said, not really understanding
That's right.
what's going on or what we're saying. But because of the fact that I came on my own and I admitted myself, they couldn't keep me.
Mm-hmm.
They had to release me. So I was released and I went home and I joined a church, and for a period of about 5 years, my whole life consisted of work, church, home, work, church, home.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And I mean, it was like I had tunnel vision.
Oh yeah.
People would call me, let's go eat. Nope. Let's go. Nope. Nope. I mean, they couldn't even get in. Half the time I wouldn't even answer my phone. And it's so funny that now when I see people, they be like, oh girl, when did you move back to Minnesota?
Yeah.
That just happened to me on Saturday. I saw somebody
wow.
and they asked me, so how long are you in town for?
Wow.
But that was how I just cut myself off
Yeah.
to the rest of the world, because I was focused on trying to get myself better, because I had a life dependent on me. I had a 3-year-old daughter and she was dependent on me, and I knew I needed to get it together for her sake. So it was just interesting how God put so many people in my path during that journey to kind of strengthen me along the way. And you know, they say if you're sick for 30 days or more, you find out who your real friends are.
Amen to that.
And so it was so funny, because when that 30-day period came up and folks was getting tired of me, God would replace them with somebody else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He would replace them. And so even at my job that I worked at, I was working for St. Paul Public Schools, and I worked with a woman. My supervisor was a single woman. She didn't have any kids. And she would always give me books and stuff to give to my daughter. She would buy her during the holidays. She always bought gifts for us, you know, because she didn't really have any family. And I for some reason, I just felt comfortable letting her know what I was going through. Yeah. So on days that I would come to work, and I would come in the front door at work, sign in, walk down to the classroom, and she would look at my face and say, you're not here today. Going out the side door and go home. I would get paid for that. I couldn't afford not to be at work, so I had to get up and go. But there was days where she would just send me home and I would get paid anyways. Or I would go over in the corner where the kids are supposed to reading corner and sleep the whole day. And she would just cover for me, and she would cover for me, and I would get paid, you know, and that's God's favor. God's favor. And so it was just things like that I encountered along the way. And it was a long 5 years. I feel like I'm rambling on.
Oh no, you're doing well. Talk about how I seen you in Lane Bryant.
One of the things that my mom used to do, bless her heart, is that you know, when them tough days for me, she would always take me shopping. Yeah. And we stayed in the malls. I had gained so much weight, and she would always tell me, girl, you gonna be big, but you gonna look good. They ain't gonna say she big and sloppy. They're gonna be like, that big girl can dress.
Yeah.
So I saw you, and I was in the thick of things. I was I had already been out of the psych ward, and I was on my way to healing, but I still would have those days where I couldn't get out of bed, or I just didn't want to do anything. That was at a time where I wouldn't go anywhere by myself. It was debilitating to be in that state. I don't know. When I look at the pictures from then, it was just like my face was like glassed over. And I don't know if people saw that when they looked at me, like I wasn't there, because I wasn't there.
It looked like that. Yeah. I remember seeing you, and I said hi to you. I remember saying hi to you, and you looked at me as if you didn't know me, just kind of like, you know. And then I said, how you doing? I was really excited to see you, but you were just kind of standoffish. And then you said, oh, I'm fine, but you act nervous. Real uncomfortable in your skin.
Making me nervous. I was probably having anxiety at that time.
Yeah, you look very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I remember once me and my daughter were in the grocery store, grocery shopping. And I'm just going on like, this is one of my very few times, getting out by myself,
Yeah.
And so I went to the grocery store. I'm just pushing along, and I don't know, just something just triggered an anxiety attack. Just this overwhelming feeling of fear just came over. It seemed like everybody in the grocery store was coming towards me. Every little chatter sound just seemed so loud, and just every little noise. I got so nervous. I mean, I was sweating. I grabbed my baby, I left my groceries, and went to the car, got in her car seat, and all I could do was just sit in the parking lot and cry. I sat there and cried for 30 minutes before I could get myself together to get home. And it was just things like that that I encountered on a daily basis. But I made up my mind that if I wasn't going to do it for myself, I had to do it for my baby.
Yeah.
And so I believe that that's what kept me strong. And hindsight's 20/20, because God knows what we need before we need it.
Oh, for sure.
And this is just me being just open and honest and transparent.
I appreciate it.
When I was pregnant with my daughter, I didn't know I was pregnant until I was 5 months pregnant. And how I found out that I was pregnant is they thought I had a cyst on my ovary. I was still having regular cycles, everything. They thought I had a cyst on my ovary, so I went in for an ultrasound, and it was a baby. And I remember thinking, oh my God, my mom's gonna kill me. You all gotta go out there and tell her, because I ain't telling her, right? Yeah. But God knew, I said that to say that God knew that I had to get past I had to get to the 5 month period before he could let me know that. Because truth be told, I would have aborted that baby. That's where I was in my life. I would have aborted that baby. He knew, fast forward to this depression, that baby was going to be the only thing that kept me alive. She had to be there. That's what kept me alive, knowing that I had a life dependent on me. If it had not been for my daughter, I don't think I would be here right now.